Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Wild Ones podcast, the show where we chat about bike stuff. I'm here with Francis and producer Emily. How is everyone doing?
Moist.
What?
Moist.
Why are you moist?
I left the house and it said 15 degrees and dry, so I wore summer kit, and then it rained a lot.
It is quite warm though, weirdly.
It was horrible.
Very humid.
Yeah, it was. My feet are now, my shoes, I've done that thing where you stuff them with paper, so hopefully they'll be 10% dry by the end of the day.
You need one of those shoe dryers.
It's in my garage.
So I'm a little bit tired, but I'm all right. But I feel fatigued after an event that we had to attend that I wouldn't say we were miserable about. We shouldn't be miserable about it because it was like honestly the most luxurious place I've ever stayed in my life. So basically, we are going to drop a video later today for an embargoed bike for an Italian bike manufacturer that sponsors a team that sounds something like Minius. Can I say that? Well, I'm going to say.
Sued.
I've said it. It's said. So we wanted the bike in this country. We actually asked for it at the studio so we can make a video on it in the usual way that we make videos, put it through like terrible conditions, rain, potholes, all of that usual stuff. But the only way we could get it is if we went to the official press event, which what we have learned from that is how much press gets. Do we bleep words out or should I just not say the word I want to say?
I mean, whatever, just say it if you want.
Bougified.
How much press get whacked off
Oh, Jimmy.
by brands so that they do really nice reviews of their products.
Yes, that is the world of PR, isn't it? You spend a lot of money on your event to make it look as nice as possible. So, I mean, they're not trying to buy you off. They're not giving you free bikes or anything like that, but they're creating the best possible environment for you to be in a good mood. But what they don't know about Jimmy is he's always in a bad mood.
Made him in an extremely bad mood.
I was particularly perplexed, and
weird.
we were constantly asking them to do stuff that they didn't want to do. Like we didn't want to go for the first place. Then we were like, "Can we take our own set of wheels so we can put that on?" They also said no to that. Then at the event, they had like 4 hours worth of presentations on the bike with engineers and all of this, and we just wanted the B-roll so we could make a video here.
B-roll and a PDF, please.
Yeah, and I was like, is it all right if we don't go to the event and we just get the bikes now because the sun's out because we were in the mountains, so it was just basically raining every 10 minutes. I was like, now's perfect for us. And they were like, I'll go and ask. They're like, no, you can't do that. You have to go to the event.
The event was, it was great and it was quite interesting, especially the bit with one of the professional riders from that team.
Oh, yeah. We give it away, don't we?
Which was great. Was for Squinios, yeah.
Mike Doe.
Mike Doe.
Wait, who's that? I don't know. Or is that a code name, is it?
Yes.
Who's Mike Doe? He's friends with Van Rysel. It was a PowerPoint presentation, which was 45 minutes long.
Yeah.
Telling you all about the bike. Really interesting stuff, if you're into that. Nice pictures. See the colorways and things. And then a 45-minute presentation from a person saying exactly the same thing. So at this point, you're sat there for 3 hours. And then it was the bit with the pro rider, which was the most interesting bit by far. Mm. But it was inefficient. Like, just let us ride the bike.
Yeah, well, I guess we have very different requirements to typical journalists. We just want good B-roll of the bike, know what it's like you said, a PDF of all the details, and then we construct a video here in the studio, which is what we have inevitably ended up doing anyway.
I spent the whole thing really trying not to be swayed by what they were saying. And basically the mission was, as we discussed on the flight when we were going out there, find the things that are wrong. Like, that's it. Just find the things that are wrong with the bike.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not so that you can only give a bad review, because I guess what you're saying is the good things are going to be obvious and pushed in your face.
Well, they talk about, exactly. They talk about the good things.
So it's trying to be as objective as possible, which I think is difficult in that environment. And what you also would never be able to do is do a long-term review of that bike, because you basically get a day with it. And it's not like, I mean, I don't think with these sort of things you're going to find big errors. It's not like a
No, of course not.
untested company. You know, they do a lot of R&D. You're not going to find big things wrong with it. However, you're only ever going to be able to do a first look on that bike, first impressions.
Yeah.
And this bike may or may not cost upwards of 10 grand.
Oh, easy, yeah.
So I think the shame of it is that you don't get this much love put into more affordable bikes, because you know this is such a big event.
You mean from the brands though, don't you? As in like the actual brands that have the bikes, they're spending hundreds of thousands of pounds on the PR for this bike.
Yeah.
But you're ultimately saying, why aren't people also spending this kind of money on the £1,500 bikes
Yeah.
that are actually really good?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, or even below, I guess, you know, more entry level bikes. It just doesn't happen, does it? And that's a shame, because I think what it ends up being is the press all launch this big hoorah around a £10,000 plus bike.
A bit like the SRAM Red versus SRAM Force
Yes.
launches and how different they were. The thing, we didn't go to it, but there was a red carpet event in London
red
for
one.
SRAM Red.
Yeah.
And not for force.
Yeah, we rented out a cinema and a pub across the road, and all this stuff was happening, and they very kindly invited us to it. We didn't go, but the Force event or the Force launch, which is the lower end group set, still high end, was here's the Force.
Yeah.
And it popped up online a bit in a few places.
They gave it to some places, for example, Nick at Backyard.
Sure,
and
yeah.
For me and him to do a bike build video, and some other places, but yeah, definitely not to the scale of the Red.
I guess
sure.
when it's a flagship thing. Interestingly, the brand that we went to visit recently, their most sold bike is the top end one. Is the one we were looking at. So.
And when the video drops, it'll be obvious why that is.
Correct.
I get what we haven't said, which I think is actually quite interesting, is to the extent with which they have actually put money towards this. And I'm amazed by it. I wasn't expecting it. So there was probably about 30 journalists from literally all over the world. There was 2 or 3 that had flown in from Australia. There was some that flown in from Japan, Canada, America, all over Europe, multiple from the UK. All of them had been flown to Treviso or Marco Polo in Italy. Then there was a 3-hour transfer into the Dolomites to this incredible ski resort, which is obviously summer now, so it's not a ski resort, which was honestly the most beautiful place I've ever stayed in my life. And then you've got a team of mechanics putting a bike together for you to ride on this perfect tarmac in the mountains, and then sent away later. And there was a 8-course tasting menu on day one, which was wasted on me because all I wanted was a pizza and a beer.
Yeah, it's pretty fancy, isn't it? This is the thing, it's no hate to this brand for doing that, but I think the important thing for us as people who are now getting into a space where we want to show off tech, you know, we want to show off tech from all ranges, because although we know 99% of our audience are never probably buying a 10 grand bike, it's interesting it's window shopping, isn't it? It's interesting to look at fun stuff, but that is the stuff that is thrust in our face as journalists, and therefore we have to kind of go out of our way to balance that by showing off the entry level stuff. So, you know, you actually going and buying tri-bands when you were doing that, and looking at Carreras and trying to find the stuff in between those two different price points. We have to work a little bit harder to make sure we're representing the whole of market and representing our audience in a way that serves them, rather than just kind of doing the PR's work for them, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, you know, I'm going to watch many more videos on fancy Porsches and Ferraris doing amazing power slides around racetracks than I am a Mini.
Yeah,
although I do quite like
a
minis.
Mini. Yeah.
We should have some sort of rule where if we review a bike which is £10,000, we then have to review up to that value of entry level bikes.
Oh, what? As in, so 10 £1,000? Yeah.
20 tri-bands.
The problem is we'll very quickly run out of
Entry level bikes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no, we know though, like we've had loads of these conversations. We don't just want to cover expensive stuff. We don't just want to cover entry level stuff or the other end of the spectrum. Like Emily said, we want to cover everything. And I actually think our best first look videos and review videos are going to be the middle of the market, because that's actually like the top end is always going to be incredible. It just is. Like it's the
Well,
best
it
bike.
should be for
They
that.
are the best bikes in the world. They're not just the most expensive. They are also the best bikes in the world. They're going to be incredible. It's just the way it is. Whereas that kind of £1,500 to £4,000 mark will have bikes that are probably nearly as good as those ones. And that's why I find that space really exciting to spend more time in. There's a lot more bikes in that space, and there's a lot more opportunity for our viewers and us as cyclists to go like, actually, this £2,500 bike kind of is pretty similar to that 15 grand bike that we rode the other month.
Well, that's it, isn't it? There's more difference.
Yeah.
In the models, there might be £1,000 Specialized Alley and £1,000 whatever decathlon sell for exactly £1,000, and you're like, oh, that is a big difference of bike.
Yeah.
I think it's good for you to try a super bike though, because then it gives you a point of reference.
Absolutely.
I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was surprised. Fucking good bike.
As it should be, I would say.
That wheel thing really annoyed me. I wanted to change the wheels. And we now have a house set of wheels. We'll talk about it in a video, not just podcast. But when we do first looks on bikes, we're just going to be switching the wheels out straight away. Because if you've got a $4,000 wheel set on a bike, it's going to ride good, even if it's something much lower end.
I guess something that's worth noting, specifically on this scenario for the video, which is also dropping today, is going forward, we probably aren't going to be saying yes to these, and we will actually be going, if you can't get us the bike, we're not going to be part of it.
Yeah, if any bike brands are listening, PDF and the bike, please. Just for a week.
And the main reason that we did say yes in this scenario is this is a new style of content, and we need enough of it so it exists. And unfortunately, this is a significant enough event or significant enough of a bike that we were like, oh, we have to cover this bike. Give us a chance to try this style of content, see how it works for us. So begrudgingly from my side, as it's very well documented, I hate traveling. We did end up going to this event. And apart from something like 24 hours of traveling over 3 days, it was all right. It was nice hanging out with you a bit.
It was good fun. I was intrigued. It was a bit of recon, wasn't it? Like what actually happens at a press event. This is not just a thing that happens in the cycling industry. This is all industries. Camera YouTube there's a guy called Gerald Undone who does like camera reviews, the Sonys that we shoot this podcast on, that we use in the studio. That kind of camera review video is what he posts. And he did a great one about press events and how they're invited to places like the Dolomites or the mountains in California somewhere. And then all the YouTubers go and there's a hype building and they all take great photos because they're in the Dolomites. And it's the same thing, isn't it? You're riding on Hollywood tarmac and round switchbacks in perfect weather, except we didn't actually have very good weather. That was the only thing that was realistic.
It's set up to make the best environment possible for you to have a good time.
And that's not like, obviously you would if you were a bike company.
Yeah.
I remember we were having a conversation, I think, on the way back towards the airport, and you were just like, oh, they're all so lovely. I'm like, yes. Yes, they are.
So no, it's no hate, but it's something that we really have to be aware of.
Yeah.
And on the subject of that journalism thing is that, well, actually, one of the things that we did, which we know they will hate, and they were going to hate, which is why we kind of hid it from them a little bit, is we dismantled the bike.
He's like, what are you doing?
No, they have never seen anyone dismantle a bike, start taking it apart at like an event like this.
Why?
What?
Why haven't they seen that? Why is no one... What's the thing you do the most on your bike, if you're an English person at least? Put it in a bike box. Constantly. Or like what's the saddle like to take on and off? It's pretty basic.
Cyclists are notorious tinkerers.
Exactly,
This is
that's what
we
I
do. We
mean.
tinker.
I change like 5 saddles in a few months of using a bike. And if it's annoying, it's going to make me angry.
Yeah.
And I don't want that if I've just spent £13,000 on a bike.
Maybe if you're buying a 13 grand bike, you're not doing your own mechanics.
That is probably true. Well, the guy, when he saw us taking it apart, he's like, an Italian wouldn't do this. They just, once the seat post is in and set to the height, that is it.
Really?
They don't even adjust nothing. They don't fly anywhere because they just go to drive 3 hours to the Dolomites. I don't want to see him ungrateful, but if I want to go on holiday, I'll just pay for a holiday.
I think this is the misconception. It seems like it is a great position to be in, to be flown to these nice places, but work is work. You're never having the same time.
I don't know. I think people working for the the journalists working for the company, surely they just go, yes, press event. Like I get to eat and drink for 3 nights, all expenses covered, and ride my bike in a sick place.
Yeah.
Whereas we're like,
You are
what's
the whole
the
company.
least amount of riding we can do but to test this bike properly and get all the B-roll that we want, instead of like, we didn't even do the loop that they suggested because we were like, let's be efficient about it. We missed lunch.
I think the difference is because we are the whole organization. So while you're away doing that, other stuff isn't getting done. When you're a small cog in a big chain, big machine, then you just have to focus on your bit. Whereas when you are one of the 3 cogs that runs the whole thing, you just have different priorities, don't you, I guess? And while, you need to invest time in seeing what that bike is like, it would be a lot more efficient to do that here.
We'd get to ride it for longer as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So much better.
So lessons learned. It wasn't a bad experience, but...
That was valuable.
So shall we move on to some news?
Yes, we should.
So because you guys were away last week, we did a listeners takeover edition. And we've been away for a couple of weeks now, and there is actually so much news to catch up on. So I thought we could stuff it all together into a little news quiz. Yay.
News quiz. Right now on Wild Ones.
Thanks,
News
Jimmi.
quiz.
So I will read the questions. You can give an answer and then we'll talk through each one a bit. I'm invoking a new rule though. You have to write it down on your tablets.
Yep.
So that you can't copy off each other, because I feel like there's a bit of copying that usually goes on.
This is like an actual TV game show, isn't it?
Yeah. And also you writing gives the listeners a chance to answer as
So
well.
everyone listening / watching, get yourself a pen
No,
and
they don't
paper.
have to get a pen. No, they can just answer.
What if they're driving, Jimmy?
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be dangerous.
Are we all ready?
Yes.
Finger pens at the ready.
I'm not actually.
Question 1. Which cycling brand just dropped a brand new streetwear collection and announced its vision to become the ultimate streetwear brand for young riders and beyond?
Wow. The ultimate streetwear brand.
For young riders.
And beyond.
Wow, I actually don't know, because that language is disgusting.
What was the cycling brand?
Which cycling brand just dropped a brand new streetwear collection?
That needs to be a brand that is incredibly uncool. And they think that doing something cool is using language like that.
Tell me your answer.
Lacole.
Okay.
Map. Because not because they're uncool, because I actually think they are quite cool, but they do a lot of weird, gravelly, more like normal clothes stuff already. So maybe.
So my thoughts are Rafa, Panormal, and probably Map already do have these kind of products.
Yeah.
But I nearly did go with Map.
So the answer is Canyon.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Curveball is not a
Where
clothing
did you
brand.
start it off with a clothing brand?
No, I said which cycling brand.
Oh, primed hard.
Yeah. Okay. So the
Fantastic.
German bike brand has launched a rideable streetwear clothing range. It isn't Canyon branded. They've instead branded it under the name Collective. At least I think that's what it's called. It's actually spelled CLLCTV. So they're doing that cool thing of dropping all the vowels in the name. This is also the name of the brand's downhill mountain bike racing team. The range is very much giving 90s skater culture vibes with oversized hoodies and t-shirts.
Oh, I saw this. They got the wheelie kids doing it.
The wheelie kids, exactly. Yeah, they do mention skate culture in their product descriptions. The product imagery is very urban. They have... I feel like they're trying to target the sort of people who watch Jake 100.
Yeah.
But if you want to be this cool, you'll have to spend some cash, because a simple black hoodie with a large Collective logo across the chest will set you back £120.
What?
Oh my
Pounds?
Pounds,
God.
aka $150. A t-shirt is £47, which is around $60. Yeah, I feel like it's giving very much Panormal vibes with the big CLLC TV. I thought it was like a TV channel.
I'll be honest, yeah, TV is a really bad bit at the end, because it looks like a junk, like cable TV channel.
I agree.
That no one watches.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
all these really cool lads have somehow ended up getting like interns there or something or other.
However, this is a seamless transition. If you want some not overpriced merch,
Oh, Wild Ones now has merch
yeah.
for much cheaper than Canyon stuff.
And probably as good quality.
Underneath all of our videos, there should be a little tray. It's not called a tray, is it? Carousel? I don't know. What's the proper terms? all the little products will be underneath, and you can click through to the website. And there is t-shirts, there is hoodies, there is outside jackets, and there is, what would you call it? A travel mug. We use it so we don't have to create loads of rubbish from the coffee shop downstairs.
There's a link to this actual like shop as well, isn't there? We can presumably put the link on the audio podcast.
Yes, so I think we need to do some marketing on this. We should send some to Wheelie Kids or something to make it cool.
Just any
Wheelie
kids out there, get in touch.
Okay, so let's move on to question 2. Which legendary cyclist received a knighthood this week? Write down your answers.
Oh, I forgot we were playing the game.
Okay, I'm going to go over Francis. Please reveal who you think it is.
Cav.
That is a terrible picture.
Jimmy?
Kevlar.
Yes, correct.
Sorry, what?
Kevlar?
Why low?
Lads, isn't it?
What? It's the thing they say at the end. In Malaysia, they finish sentences with la.
It's very Gavin and Stacey, I think.
Yeah, Essex.
So that was correct. Mark Cavendish, or should I say Sir Mark Cavendish. He was awarded a knighthood in the King's Birthday Honours List for his unprecedented achievements as a road cycling's greatest ever sprinter. Yay. Question 3.
Oh, I'm getting cold.
Okay. Question 3. Virtual training platform MyWhoosh made a bold move to try and entice Zwift users over to its platform by announcing what new feature?
I'm ready.
Me too.
Okay, let's go to Jimmy first.
You can transfer your levels and points things across.
Okay.
Transfer levels.
Boom, yes.
It's not just levels, is it? It's some other stuff as well. Like if unlockables, maybe.
Yeah,
Are they going to have the same unlockables? Probably not exactly all the same stuff.
What it says is it's going to let users transfer levels and ratings over from Zwift profile. So maybe they've been listening to this podcast because I remember, Francis, you pointing out.
I have no excuse but to start using MyWhoosh now.
Yeah, exactly. Losing Zwift levels or progress is potentially one of the things that stops people from jumping ship. Yeah, so to transfer over, users need to submit relevant data with proof, which will undergo verification. Once verified, the rider's level, distance, and level rewards and elevation gain will be reflected in MyWhoosh. So it's probably not exactly the same unlockables, but...
This is a fantastic move from them.
Oh, big, bold move. I'm guessing all the data is publicly available and it can just be extracted from the Zwift website.
But it's not even extracted, is it? They're just basically, you're just going like you can see all of that information and they're just going, right, so now you're equivalent this. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but you'd have to get it verified. I'm sure they would have to extract it from the Zwift database to be able to make it legit.
Do they have to do it verified? Does it really matter? No.
Oh, it matters to some people.
It matters to some people.
But what I'm saying is it doesn't actually matter. Like, it's not the same thing. It's just a way for you to not feel like you're starting again, missing out, falling behind.
Yep.
It's such a good marketing move from them.
It is. And the timing of this move is interesting because, as you'll remember, Zwift recently raised its prices, which left a lot of people a bit sour.
That is a power play, that.
So MyWhoosh, on the other hand, is free for now at least, and it's actually started getting some good reviews in the press.
I don't know if they're still doing it, but there was a point where they were doing big prize money for races as well.
Yeah, well, they're the official partner of World Tour Team UAE Team Emirates, and as we've previously discussed, they're set to host the UCI Cycling Esports World Championships for the next 3 years, where they're giving away a lot of prize money.
Yeah, interesting.
It is interesting. They are clearly putting a lot of money behind this. It'll be interesting to see
Ed Laverick in a Rolex.
What?
It'll be interesting to see Ed Laverick in a Rolex.
Oh, what? Because you think he's going to win?
Well, yeah, he's well good at e-racing. Now it's big prize pots. This is the time.
It might finally be the end of the Zwift monopoly, whether you like that or not, whether you support MyWhoosh being that or not. Just stating facts, I think it could be. Question 4. Speaking of Zwift, they just released a smart bike specifically designed for turbo training. It's essentially a single-speed frame that sits atop of a kicker core trainer, and it uses a Zwift cog system which allows you to do virtual gearing. But can you tell me how much it costs?
For what?
The bike trainer combo package as standard. So what I'm going to say is closest wins. These guys are going to tell me it in GBP, but if you want to play along at home, I also know the US and EU pricing.
I'm done. I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, I can't remember who I asked last. Let's go Francis first.
£1,200.
Okay.
£1,100.
Oh.
The answer is £1,199.99. So Francis was a penny away. He gets that point. In dollars and euros, it's $1,299.99.
I'm very impressed. That was lucky guess. I've seen the articles and I knew it was cheap.
Yeah.
Well, it's not cheap.
It's not cheap.
I knew it was significantly cheaper than the existing options smart bikes.
I think that this is trying to target the Peloton market. So Pelotons apparently start from 1,345, so at 1,200 is firmly in that price bracket.
Is a Peloton a smart bike or is it a spinning bike?
Well, I guess it's smart because you link to.
I feel. Do you still self-control it though, like a spinning bike, or is it controlled by the worker? I don't actually know.
Good question. I don't know. What I do know about them is the company's going down the pan, and then you're not going to get any of the videos and updates, are you?
I always thought it was basically a spinning bike, which means that you control the resistance with a wheel, but you do it along to a video of someone telling you when to do that, like those sessions that you do at the gym, which are probably good sessions, but in terms of it being compared to what we are used to in the cycling world as a smart bike, it's like old tech.
I think you're correct, yes.
Whereas this Zwift bike is a smart bike and comparable to the Tax Neo to what I can't remember. No, Neo Bike, isn't it? It's just
Neo
called a
Bike.
bike. And also, what's the other ones out there?
What bike?
What bike as well? It's in that space. But for some reason, because it's so basic, it basically is just like a really cheap alloy or probably steel bike frame with their little controllers on it. It
has a chain and everything, doesn't it?
Looking at it in comparison to the very expensive bikes that are out there, it looks basic as, but it does bring the price down a lot.
People were complaining in the comment section on one of the release articles about the fact it has a chain on it, and they're like, it's going to corrode, because people sweat loads on an indoor bike, don't they?
But you're sweating at the front of the bike.
Some people's asses sweat as well.
I don't ride it long enough to sweat. Make your sessions easier.
It's not something I've ever had an issue with on a turbo that I've over the years have done a lot of turboing on. I've never ended up with a rusty chain.
They make that thing to stop you from sweating on. Its headset is an issue. People's turbo bikes do get nasty and crusty, and then their bars corrode and the bars come off.
Yes.
Like they snap. But the headset is a big issue, but Tax make that thing, don't they?
Thong.
It looks like a thong. And it tapes on it Velcros on the front and then hooks over your saddle, and it creates a platform. You can even get one with a phone slot in the middle.
I sort of look at this and I go, why would you essentially, I mean, I have a turbo trainer already, so I say, why would you essentially buy a frame? Because apparently they're going to release, currently you can only buy it with a kicker core, but they're going to release a version of this bike, which is just the bike, and it will be compatible with other brands of turbo trainers. So you could, if you have a Tax, you could link it into your Tax. But it goes, why would you do that over just
buying a bike,
having a very cheap?
You could buy a £700, £700 Van Rysel.
Yeah.
Get it like dialed in position wise. It lives on a turbo, but every now and again you can go, actually, I can still ride that as an actual bike, and it will probably be a couple £100 cheaper than that on its own.
So apparently this bike came out of research that Zwift did, that they found that there are people who would love to Zwift, but they find putting a bike on and off a turbo trainer intimidating. So the way they've combated this is basically it has 3 changeable points, basically 2 pivot points on the handlebars, 1 on the seat post. And they provide you with a chart based on your height. So I'd look at it and say, okay, I'm 5'10", for example, and it'll tell you to put the stem bars and seat post all to position H. So you're not having to remember lots of measurements, which is more in line with gym bikes, I guess.
If I'm not mistaken, I did have a look at this the other day, and I think it comes by default with maybe a 40 or a 42 centimetre bar. So for nearly everyone, or for a large proportion of people, and definitely every small male and woman, they're going to have to fully change the handlebars anyway. It
also comes with a 170 non-adjustable crank arm length.
Yeah,
whereas
like you're better off buying a bike that's the right size for you, and like
what you're paying for with
Van Rysel, it lives on the bike
with the expensive Neo bike and all that. Yeah. It's all the crank length is adjustable, and the bars aren't though.
You would still have to change your bars. You got to change your bars if you wanted.
Yeah.
I think it's a good product for the industry because of the price point. I think it, as you've said, it probably is targeted at Peloton people. Not exclusively. It'll be people that go like, well, I definitely am happy just living on a turbo. I don't have to mess around, keep my walls nice and clean when I don't have to lug bikes in and out. But I think for probably a lot of people listening to this, or a good proportion of our audience, and myself as one of those, it's just not. It doesn't work for me.
No, I have to agree with you there. It also comes with those integrated Zwift Play controllers rather than shifters and stuff. But in order to virtually shift, you have to be on the Zwift game. So it's basically...
Yeah, you couldn't just use it.
You can't just use it as a normal turbo. I think if you're on something like Trainer Road and it has erg mode, it would work with that. But other than that, you basically can't shift. So what it actually does is force you into the subscription of the Zwift software. So that's another reason that I think that it's not a great product. It's a bit like the Peloton thing. Again, do you then get sucked into needing to be with that workout? And I understand the idea of the intimidation of setting up the turbo thing. However, it almost feels like the barrier of getting over using clipless. And again, not everyone wants to do that. But if you get over that, you have a lot more advantages.
What if you're lazy? I mean, I can put a bike on and off a turbo pretty quick, but I'm still too lazy to do it. I'm like, I'll just go outside and walk co-op instead of doing this training session.
Well, then do that and you'll save yourself £1,200.
Worth it.
Next question. Which celebrity revealed they are lucky to be alive after having a massive crash on their bike this week?
I need to work on my handwriting, man. I'm ready.
Go on then, Jimmy.
Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay. You are both correct.
Hi guys, it's Gordon. I'd like to share a very important message with you all. You know how much I love cycling and triathlons and Ironman, etc. This week, unfortunately, I had a really bad accident and it really shook me. And honestly, I'm lucky to be here. Now, from those incredible trauma surgeons, doctors, nurses in the hospital that looked after me this week, they were amazing. I'm lucky to be standing here. I'm in pain. It's been a brutal week and I'm sort of getting through it. But I cannot tell you the importance of wearing a helmet.
I think the interesting thing about it is how clearly shaken up he is in the video. You can see his hand like literally jittering as he's saying it. So it's clearly been some major sort of nasty incident. So we hope he gets well soon. Question 6. As you know, the Women's Tour of Britain was on earlier this month, but Pro Continental team Life Plus Wahoo were almost forced to pull out after stage 1. Can you tell me why?
I'm ready.
You write so fast.
Yep.
Stolen bikes.
Stolen bikes.
Correct.
We are hot on the news at the minute,
Yeah,
aren't we?
pretty good. It's almost like it's our job.
The whole team had their bikes stolen. All 14 of their Ribble Endurance SLR bikes, which are worth around £55,000 in total, were taken from their mechanic's van as they slept in the team hotel on night 1. Thankfully, the British team managed to start the second stage of the tour, having been loaned bikes from other teams. In fact, the team manager said that within 5 or 10 minutes of reaching out to other teams, they had offers of 6 or 7 bikes, and they managed to pull enough together to complete the final 3 stages.
What a lovely ending to a terrible story.
Question 7. A 20-year-old Norwegian pro cyclist tried to reinvent what banned position at the Tour of Slovenia this week?
Reinvent.
Jimmy?
Praying mantis.
Okay.
Super tuck.
Super tuck. And the answer is the Super Tuck. So this is Johan Kulset of Team Uno X Mobility. He was disqualified from the Tour of Slovenia after the UCI said he'd done a Super Tuck on a descent. So the Super Tuck is a banned position. It was banned in 2021 on safety grounds. The rules around it state sitting on the bicycle's top tube is prohibited. Furthermore, using forearms as a point of support on the handlebars is prohibited, except in time trials. However, Johan has basically said his body wasn't making contact with the top tube and therefore he shouldn't be disqualified. So there was footage on Twitter of him in this tuck, and to be honest, it's quite hard to see whether he's making contact or not. he thinks he's worked out a clever way around it. He said he's now demanding an apology from the UCI, saying, I know the rules. But I don't think it's worked. He almost looks like he's doing Graham O'Bree's famous tuck position, where it's kind of hands on the bars at the top and then sort of hovering above the top tube. So technically not a super tuck in the rules.
He's hovering above the bike, isn't he?
He's an idiot because even if like he goes, oh, but technically I'm not touching the top tube, they're going to go, all right, okay, well, it's now banned that you can't touch the top tube as well. It's a dangerous position. The whole point of it is that it's a dangerous position. Therefore, they don't want people doing it. Like, what does he think's going to happen?
Well, technically, it was within the rules. So the UCI shouldn't disqualify him, but they should immediately change the wording of the rules.
How does he prove that he isn't on the top tube, though?
There's footage, isn't there?
It's quite hard to see from the footage, but it potentially, yeah, it's debated, but I think the reason he did it is he thought he'd worked out a workaround.
Yeah, workaround, yeah.
I don't know. I think he did it because he wanted to get some attention for his team.
Do you think?
It's good. In that respect, fantastic move.
Oh, Uno X, what
Well
a great
done.
team. Yeah, no, they're actually good.
Question 8. Which cycling news website is closing down after the brand was sold back to its original owners?
If you hadn't used the second part of that sentence, you might have got away with us not knowing.
Francis?
I've written GCN, but I'll be honest, I
GCN.
didn't know they had a website as well as YouTube.
Yes, so the answer is GCN. Warner Brothers Discovery has confirmed it's selling back a majority stake in Play Sports Network to its original founder Simon Weir and CEO Mia Walter. The sale comes 6 months after race streaming service GCN Plus was closed down, and apparently that's not coming back anytime soon. Road CC has reported that the GCN website will stop operating with immediate effect, leading to several job losses. I had a look this morning, and I can see the website is currently live, but there hasn't been any new posts on there for over a week. But the good news is that GCN, the brand, will continue to operate on YouTube and other social platforms. So what is going on? Well, it was first reported back in September that Warner Brothers Discovery was looking for a buyer for Play Sports Network. It also shut down GCN Plus due to what they called changing media industry landscape. Basically, the parent company wanted to consolidate live cycling coverage as part of its Discovery Plus service, which basically leaves no place for a dedicated streaming service for cycling. I think ultimately it's a product of the fact that streaming services are just becoming much more competitive. They're all fighting for the same monthly subscription. So it makes sense for Discovery Plus to want to bring cycling into a larger part of an offering rather than having GCN Plus as a side pot. Because, when you're paying sort of, for example, £10 for Netflix every month and you're getting loads of different stuff, or I don't know what the price of Discovery Plus is. Do you know, Jimmy?
£6 or £7 a month now, I think.
Yeah, so whereas you were paying that same sort of price just to get cycling on GCN Plus, it almost doesn't work. And it's a recent thing, isn't it, that streaming services have become much more competitive and therefore had to beef up what they offer for the money. A side note to this, after we finished recording this episode, GCN dropped a video announcing they're going to be putting the documentaries that once lived on the GCN Plus app behind what is essentially a YouTube paywall. So viewers who want to watch these specific types of video will have to go onto YouTube and pay a fee. The GCN YouTube channel is obviously still valuable. It sounds like their wage bill was quite high, which is why they've kind of cut off the website. I don't know how much the website serves, really. It pushes to their YouTube videos, and they would usually do articles and write-ups, which are potentially getting seen on Google, but I just think that's way less valuable, isn't it, than YouTube?
Do you think they would have had dedicated members of staff just for the website? And that's where the job losses are from.
I think so, yes. Yeah. So Warner Brothers still have a minority stake, so they've said that they'll stay on and kind of
try and recover their losses.
Who knows? I don't know.
Speculation.
So yes, GCN the YouTube channel isn't going anywhere, but the website apparently is no more. And question number 9. The UCI has announced plans to go down the football route by introducing what new system to deal with dangerous driving and riding during races?
I can't remember what it's called. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Go on then, Jimmy.
I can't remember what like the goal technology kind of thing, but like live camera referee.
Like VAR?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I put yellow, red card.
Ooh.
The correct answer is yellow cards.
You said that, and I was like, I'm a dum-dum. Yellow, red card. I was right.
So these yellow cards can be given to anyone in the race convoy. So that includes riders, team car drivers, sports directors, motorbikes, etc. Basically, anyone found guilty of breaching the UCI's current safety rules may receive a yellow card along with the traditional sanctions. 2 yellow cards in the same race will mean disqualification and suspension for a week. If you get 3 yellow cards within a 30-day period, you'll be suspended for 14 days. 6 yellow cards in the space of a year will lead to 30-day suspension. There won't be any physical cards given, but basically there'll be a log kept. You know, you're not going to see someone from the UCI chasing after them with
They should have to stop, receive a card, and then have to chase back on.
That would be funny.
Is this? It's not just riders though, right? It's drivers.
It could be any. Yeah. So
Because there is no. Much to my surprise, I got into the first ever time I was in a race convoy. Got into one of the cars with the DS, assistant DS of a team, and he's like, "Oh, this is my first ever race." And he's like there's no training course. There's no practice.
Yeah.
You're just thrown into a race and you have to work it out.
You've got a driving license, presumably.
Yeah,
but
that's it. Yeah,
It's a very skilled thing. Do you see there was that footage that went viral of a team car? I think it was in a women's race, and the team car rides up to a rider and accidentally knocks the back wheel of another rider in front, and then they both go down. So I think that one went. I saw that one on Lab Bible and stuff like that. It went really big. So I think it's to try and prevent.
Yeah, definitely.
It's much more complicated than a lot of people will realize, and it's way more intense as well. Because when you see a zoomed out helicopter shot of a race, it's just like cars driving through a field, but actually it's stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Like everything's crazy. They have to choose the right car with no turbos because the riders have to get on the back of the cars to draft naughtily. And if they had turbos, they'd be lurching forwards, and they're all automatics as well.
I would be giving yellow cards for drafting cars and sticky balls.
Part of the sport, Jimmy.
Disagree with it?
So apparently they're going to trial this new system from the 1st of August before potentially bringing it in fully next year. So they're trialing the system, but you won't get the sanctions. And then if they're happy with how it's worked, then from next year, they're going to bring it in fully.
Cool.
They're also going to test 2 new rules at this year's Tour de France to try and calm the chaos of bunch sprints. So the first change is the 3-kilometre rule, which basically allows a rider who suffered a crash or mechanical in the final 3K of a race to be credited with the time of the group they were in at the time of the incident. That's now changing to 5 kilometres in some circumstances, and it's basically because they found that there's a lot more traffic calming infrastructure around finishing sites. So they're trying to stop riders making silly decisions when there's, potentially road humps or roundabouts or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The second change is the method of calculating time gaps in mass finishes. It's going to be simplified. The gaps between groups will only be counted after 3 seconds instead of 1. The other change that they're making is they're going to carry out studies of equipment such as hookless rims, tubeless tyres, foam inserts, etc. in order to work out what equipment might be contributing to crashes. And this could potentially lead to tighter regulations on manufacturers. So they didn't specifically say hookless rims, but I'm giving you an example of equipment because obviously famously there's been a couple of incidents with that sort of technology.
I think making racing safer is definitely something that should be quite high up the priority, because some of the accidents that happen, especially now, is just brutal. It's absolutely brutal. So make it safer. Excellent.
Yes. And with that, the scores are in. I remembered to keep score this time.
I've definitely not won this. Somehow Francis has pulled one out of the bag. He seemed to know them all for some reason. I feel like he's been cheating.
Francis has a score of 8 out of 9 and Jimmy has a score of 5 out of 9.
Unbelievable.
So well done, Francis.
Unbelievable.
It's you losing.
Why do I look like a mariachi? Potato. Time for another round of overrated or underrated. I'm going to read out a list of things and you're going to tell me if they're overrated or underrated. So first up, suggested by Charlie and very relevant based on the last few questions we've had, the UCI.
I've met the UCI.
Mr. UCI.
Yeah.
Lives next door to Van
Zach
Rysel.
from the UCI. And it was, I actually went to the UCI headquarters in Switzerland when we were riding to Switzerland. And I always thought, UCI, overrated. But actually, he's really nice. And he was very, he embraced the fact that UCI ban everything and went along with our jokes. So he's definitely underrated. UCI as a whole, yeah, probably still overrated.
Are they? They're not well rated though, are they? Everyone thinks
Everyone
that
hates them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the UCI don't actually have that much beef about. British cycling, I have a lot of beef with.
We know.
But the UCI, I think they're all right, aren't they? ASO, terrible organisation. British cycling, terrible organisation. UCI, I'm going to say that they're actually all right. They do good stuff. They make things happen.
Yeah, the older I get, the
think.
more that the older I get, and the more tech and aero stuff that's released, and then looking at it and going, "Oh, that looks horrible," and then it gets banned by the UCI. I'm like, maybe they're doing God's work.
I think people have beef with them sort of being so pernickety about sock length when they could be fighting bigger fish. But
Yeah, that's the complaint, isn't it?
But overall, I mean, I think stuff in the interest of rider safety is a good thing.
I'm going to say underrated
Yeah.
because everyone hates them, and I think they exist to enable lots of stuff to happen.
Okay, next one.
Matching brand cycling kits from jersey to socks, suggested by Laz. For me, this is so overrated. It is absurd. Wear whatever the hell you want to wear. It doesn't care if it matches. Doesn't matter if it's a team kit. Doesn't matter if it's a bloody Tour de France winners jersey or a World Champs jersey. Do not care. Ride your bike. Enjoy riding your bike. And if anyone says, "Oh, you shouldn't be wearing that,"
Come.
and where does everyone else stand on this?
You couldn't have put it better myself.
Yep.
Wear what you want, even if it's a t-shirt.
Coaching for everyday riding or fitness, suggested by Jackson.
Overrated.
Elaborate, please.
Oh, it's a big question. Okay, I think some people struggle with the getting into a good habit and the accountability of
Yes.
having a coach. It's like a personal trainer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really does help. However, you can also, I suppose, doing it for a little bit and then forming the habit and continuing on your own.
I think you're totally right. I think that's why a lot of people doing it. It's the same as the personal training thing, isn't it? It takes 30 days to cement a habit.
It's more like 3 years.
Yeah, it takes habits are hard to form. So I think that taking that off your shoulders and having someone else give you that accountability works very well.
Yeah,
for
you
some
have
people.
a time in the diary every week and you have to turn up and do it.
It sort of depends on your goals, doesn't it? And how seriously you take it. There's nothing wrong with doing it, but you don't need to do it.
It's worth mentioning. Sometimes I find myself slipping into it, maybe because I'm a bit obsessive with anything that I pursue. Sometimes I'll get a little bit of coaching from Coach Ken or Pete, and it starts off very sensible, and then the things that they say cause me to get too obsessed about it, and then I end up not liking the sport again.
Right.
And I think when I'm left to my own devices, I keep it very healthy. But when I have that external, just do the, like do the training session. Even if you don't feel like it, you'll be fine. The TSS says you'll be fine. Or your training load says you'll be fine. And then it just always gets out of hand. And I end up not liking cycling again.
I'm one of those all or nothing people as well. And for a great example of it is, if you remember, a few weeks ago, I ran to work. And that was because I was like, I'm doing a marathon later this year. Let's get a 10 miler in on week 3 of training, see where I'm at.
Yeah. Where did you end up? You ended up on the sofa in there.
Yeah.
Lying
having
down,
a nice kip.
sending selfies.
Yeah.
Please save me.
I do think it is overrated. And for the same reason you guys, accountability for some people works.
It's expensive as well.
There's loads of good free places that you can get like consistent training. It's harder to stick to it. Like, I know all of the Garmin stuff as like they have the daily suggestions. We did a video, or Francis did a video, 30 days using the daily suggestions on his watch. They do legit training plans as well. There's other stuff as well, like Strava have their own training plans, Zwift have their own training plans, and they're all fine and something to follow, goes on your calendar, blah, 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 blah. You definitely don't need it, but if it works for you, cool. Next, Centre Parcs, suggested by Seb, who said, "We just got back from a trip there, and for family-orientated cycling, it's really hard to beat. No cars anywhere for 4 days, bike parking everywhere, super quiet, mostly flat, and just about everyone can find a cycling option, whether they need to put young kids in a trailer or grab a tricycle. It's the closest thing that most people in the UK get to a car-free lifestyle, so it blows my mind that more people don't come away from Centre Parcs campaigning for more car-free or car-light spaces. It's a fantastic advert for 15-minute neighborhoods. I 100% agree with what Seb is saying. I have been to Center Parcs a long time ago before I used to ride bikes, and I used to you leave your car at the entrance, and then you spend the rest of the time in woodlands on lovely paths, and it's just amazing.
Isn't it a shame we've had to make that place
Yep.
an artificial place which is what life should be like anyway.
The perfect example of that is like a city centre, a CBD, whatever you want to call it. You shouldn't have cars in the centre of a town. You should enter it on a bus or a train or a car that stops like 2 miles or a mile outside of the centre of town, and then there's just loads of bikes that you just ride into for the remaining bit of it.
Remember how good Barcelona was? It's not quite that level, but how much more priority you get as a pedestrian. And we had to walk to get bike boxes that day. I was really hungover. And then we were walking, green light, green light, green light, green light, and all the cars have to stop.
The 15-minute neighborhood thing is really interesting because as much as cycling infrastructure needs to change, if you live outside of a city, most of the things you are doing are far outside a 15-minute radius of you by bike.
Yeah.
And you add hills to that or whatever, then does it become feasible for most people to be using their bike for everything, even if this infrastructure was fantastic?
That's where e-bikes come into the equation, and the correctly spec'd e-bike fills that gap. Because so where we live, it's not incredibly hilly, but it's pretty hilly. 15 minutes doesn't get you very far. In some respects, if you go one way, it gets you 1.5 miles up the road because it is just a climb all the way.
Yeah.
Whereas once you add good e-bikes into that space, you actually get all the way to the next town. Underrated.
Yeah, I've never been, but it sounds good.
Thanks for those awesome suggestions. If you have a topic you want us to debate on Overrated or Underrated, please send them to wildonespodcast@cademedia.co.uk and we might read yours out in a future episode. Next up, we have Fluff Up of the Week. I've got 2 Fluff Ups of the week Fluff Up of the Weeks, both coming from our venture to Italy on behalf of Bike Video, which is dropping later today. The first one is I'm unfortunately into red wine at the minute. I really enjoy a lovely glass of red wine on an evening, couple of times a week. Don't drink to excess. It's just nice having a glass of wine with dinner. And whilst we were in Italy, I was like, well, I'm in Italy. I may as well buy myself a nice bottle of Italian wine. Did so in the airport because I was surprised that they had this wonderful selection of wine because I thought it would be junk, but it was actually great.
You also only had hand luggage, didn't you? So you had to buy it in the airport to be able to get it.
Oh, so can you put a bottle of wine in?
Yeah, you can put whatever you want in baggage,
of course,
whatever it's called.
I'm not
hold.
good at this traveling thing. I'm really not good at it, as we're about to learn here. I flew from Marco Polo to Gatwick and then from Gatwick to Newcastle. What I didn't know is that any liquids, even bought in duty free, have to be put into magical little bags. So when I got to Heathrow, and then you have to go through security again, they then grabbed my delicious, lovely bottle of wine. I'm like, oh, you can't take that. I was like, what do you mean? I bought it in duty free.
So they messed up not putting it in the magical bag.
Yeah,
The sealed bag.
Yeah.
I didn't know those things existed, but I did know that you had to go through security again. I was just so in my own little world that day. After the amazingness of the Cinderello trip.
Cinderello. I'll beat that. Cinderello. We did not say it. But the thing is, you got off at Heathrow, so you could have actually taken his wine away had you known.
Yeah. Not only that, but also you turned up with the wine. And why didn't I just think, you can't have that? Because the security at Heathrow, when you land in and then you change to a domestic flight, is the worst. Like, it did take you like 40 minutes to get through.
it was a while, yeah.
And even longer because you got pulled.
But what? But surely you go, look, it's duty free, and they go, oh yeah, cool. That's what I was expecting. But
No.
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 See you later. And then I put it on Instagram, and basically everyone said, well, they're going to have a great time later.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also have another one from the same trip. It turns out that the whole of Italy are, and I guess the whole of Europe, are hardcore meat eaters. I don't eat meat. One of the things that we went to was this super old traditional house that they said something about being Latin themed. So I think they actually speak Latin, maybe 4 or 5 courses. And the main course was lots of meat with then like a little bit of polenta and a bit of potato. And when they got told that I was a pescatarian, they went into kind of meltdown. And then the lady at some point came up and said, oh, do you want da-da-da-da-da? I was like, yeah, whatever. And then it turned out to be a plate of polenta with goat's cheese. Well, I'm not even sure. They called it like mountain cheese, which I'm not sure what that means on top of it.
We were on a table of like 12 people and everybody could smell that cheese, even from far away on the other side of the room.
Polenta's basically...
It was flavourless.
Yeah, it is.
As was the cheese, even though it smelt.
Yeah, I don't think that was their fault, was it? They were it was sprung on them. It was probably
definitely
not planned very well. But you say the whole of Europe, Italy, nice margarita pizza, bit of ice cream, bit of pasta, like pasta with tomato sauce.
I'm adding a third one to this section. We were in Italy for what was essentially nearly 3 days, and the only pizza that I got to eat in that time was one in Heathrow Airport when we got back. And I just had my wine confiscated.
In the lounge, I sneaked him in. You bring a guest.
Yeah.
Wine confiscated. I'd been in Italy for 3 days and hadn't had a single piece of pizza. So I had to then I was like, I don't care. I'm going to have one from the airport.
Lovely.
And that sums up a section we're now calling First World Problems.
With Jimmy Nichols. Let's head over to your emails because it's time for Listeners Takeover.
We had a funny email from Barry. It says, hi all, just thought I'd share my own fluff up of the week. Here's how my Saturday went. 5 a.m, early wake-up call as I had a sportive ride. Put on carefully chosen cycling gear after monitoring the weather forecast all week. Eat a healthy carb-loaded breakfast in preparation for 90 miles of riding. 6:30, start my 1-hour cycle to the event.
Eesh.
Bike repaired and ready to go. Pockets loaded with food and route map installed on my Garmin. 7:30, roll into the venue. Time to sign up, pin on race numbers, and then line up for the 60-mile sportive. 7:31 a.m, realisation that I'm the only person in the car park. Check event emails on my phone. 7:32 a.m, start 1-hour ride back home, then get ready for tomorrow's sportive. Oops. Love the show, Barry.
Very good. Very good. But the only thing I have in line, the closest thing I have to that is driving from London back to my hometown of Cardiff to do the very first Velathon Wales, which is 100 miles closed row sportive. I don't even know if they still do it. It was actually where I met Nibs in the start pen of that race.
Oh.
And I turned up, you have to sign on the day before, and I was like, oh, I haven't got any shoes. So I had to leg it to Evans and buy the best pair of shoes, a pair of cycling shoes, and they were hideous, and I had 100 miles of them.
Shoes is a hard thing to recover from if you forget them. As long as you have your shoes and your racing license, you can always race.
Do you think?
Yeah. Everything else can be borrowed or stolen or off other people. Yeah. But shoes and racing license, either of those things is bad news.
Also, a bit of a flex for Barry, cycling there and back and doing the sportive.
Yeah, he's carb loaded perfectly for his 2 hours of riding.
Yeah.
Thanks all for your emails. If you'd like to send us one, you can send it to wildonespodcast@cademedia.co.uk. That's the end of the show. Thank you very much for listening. Drop us a like and see you on the next one. Goodbye, guys.
Bye.